Hi everyone, welcome to episode 13 of the Aspiring STEM Geek. In this episode, I talked to Carl Denis. Carl is a cybersecurity engineer. We have a wide-ranging conversation in this episode. We talk about Carl's experience growing up in Haiti, the unfortunate 2010 earthquake that occurred in Haiti, Carl moving from Haiti to the United States, and eventually joining the U.S. Army, his experience repairing helicopters and being a crew chief, cybersecurity, programming, and some music that we're listening to now. I hope you enjoy the episode. Carl Denis, welcome.
Hey man, how's it going?
Good,
Adrian. Yeah, it's good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
thanks for having me. I know you started this, for some time ago, and I was wondering when are you going to have me on? So I realized today is the day, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, eventually. I'm, as always, really excited for this conversation. Know you're doing well, and we're both doing well. Life's great, so let's jump into it.
All right, awesome.
All right, you grew up in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. How was it like growing up there?
So I mean, where I grew up from the start. So most big cities, you have like the metro area and cities outside of it, right? So Port-au-Prince, basically, I'm from Port-au-Prince, but this actual city is called Carrefour. It, I don't know, back then, maybe about a 30-minute, maybe an hour drive. Traffic is different, different type of situation. But it was, I think, I'd say pretty normal for the context of the country and the times. And I'd say, basically being a smaller country with all the challenges and everything going on. But yeah, I mean, just I went to school in Port-au-Prince though, so woke up early because it was kind of a long ride. At some point, I had to take public school bus, and at some point we had like private, what they call private drivers, basically like a smaller school bus. So you have like a chauffeur picking up a few kids from the city, taking them downtown in Port-au-Prince to go to school. So yeah, it was just waking up early, going to school. I'm talking maybe 4:00 in the morning. So I guess that's not normal. But yeah, waking up 4:00 in the morning because you have to get ready.
I barely was able to get up at 8, so
Right.
good for you.
Yeah. So that I'm thinking of it. Yeah. So it's waking up that early because taking public transportation can be a little bit longer. Going to the metro area, and then coming back, studying, playing around with kids in the neighborhood if you have time. And again, like I said, in the context of the country, so it's not like there's TV 24/7 that you can just, there's not electricity 24/7. So when there's electricity, watch a little bit of TV here and there, eat, hang out with it. And if there's special occasions, so I remember my uncle used to take us to the beach, right? So it would be this fun thing, like there's some kids in the neighborhood or like in behind our house, like some kids in the same age. Basically, he would just give us a signal for us to go to the beach, which wasn't really that far, and it's an island, so like the beach is pretty close to like for most places where you would live. But yeah, we just go to the beach. That was the fun. Or if there's activities going in Port-au-Prince in the metro area, my mom would take us. And like things like Labor Day activities, carnival, like for school children, carnivals and things like that. So yeah, I think that's pretty normal for the context of like I said, it's just like what's available for you as a kid, the challenges the country was going through back then, but you're still able to, some kids are fortunate to have a pretty normal life as far as like food on the table, have time to go to school, study, do well in school and things like that, and hang out with your friends when the opportunity arises. But like most places too, so a lot of kids are not as fortunate. So I think it's more apparent in small countries like that, where you see like those who are not fortunate, how how they live. But for me, I say for my family and a few kids in our neighborhood, pretty normal. Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Being able to go to the beach and having,
yeah,
that's amazing. So,
yeah.
kind of skip a little forward. Unfortunately, in 2010, there was a magnitude 7 earthquake, which is very severe. The number of deaths was pretty large, somewhere between 100 and 160,000. So you
Yeah.
and your family were living near Port-au-Prince. So if you feel comfortable, do you want to talk about that experience?
Oh yeah, that's that was a time there, because let me taking it back to the very moment. I remember I might have been in ninth grade then. Um, yeah, maybe ninth grade. And then I think it was around exam time, finals and things like that. And I just got to my room, sat, just picked up my book, and really about to sit down to study. As soon as I felt like as soon as I opened the book, excuse me, the whole house started shaking. The tremor was just like anything I have felt before. But it was weird. Like when I thought back about it, some time after that, it's like it was instinct. I knew what was going on, even though I had never lived through an earthquake. I didn't sit around and just kind of like panic or anything like that. I just knew what was going on, and I just sprinted outside. As I'm running outside, and it was weird because the houses in Haiti, it's mostly brick and concrete and things like that. So it's very, very loud and very apparent. Everything is shaking, everything is moving around you. So I'm running outside, barely keeping up, falling, starting to run. And I met my grandpa in the living room, and then we both fell on the ground. And I'm telling him, it's an earthquake. We have to get out. We have to get out. And we just managed to get out, falling, climbing, just crawling. Seeing I had a cousin who was at the house at the time. He was outside, but he was going back in. He was so confused. He was jumping back inside the house to hide under the bed. So it was just like, it was new for everyone. So it was just like how you react it's just, based on what you know or your instinct. So we by the time I made it outside, I saw the neighbor's house crumble in front of me. So the whole street went white, dust everywhere. And that's when, just I'd say hysteria kicked in. Everyone's yelling, crying, and I'm telling my family, the house went down. Everyone, I was like, everyone, they didn't make it. The house just went down. And just seeing that everywhere, the whole street, like everything was white, and you can see that's when people are just like in the moment, just taking it all in. You don't know who made it, who didn't. Yeah, it was rough. Just those first few minutes, even the first few minutes, realizing that what just happened and the houses that went down, they went down. And by then you don't know who's in there, who's not there. You don't know if they went out, if they got lucky, nothing. It's just you just assume they didn't make it. So it was pretty tough, at least in my neighborhood. I know like maybe two houses that went down. I have heard of some other houses that went down that crumbled down the block, but I couldn't bear myself to go see, because it was a lot to take in. I was maybe 15, 16 at the time. It was a lot to take in. I've heard of some friends who didn't make it, and people went to go and watch. So I couldn't do it. So it was a lot to take in for everyone. And not only seeing what's around you, like knowing you have family members in downtown. My mom was working downtown at the time. So of course, things like that happen. Everyone's on the phone. Communications are down. So you can't communicate with anyone. So the only people made it are the people that you see, that you encounter. So everyone is just, you don't know where they are. So it was rough for everyone. And luckily, my mom made it at the time, and she walked from Port-au-Prince, the metro area, probably even further than that, all the way home. I'm talking something that can take up to an hour uh, in traffic. She walked the whole thing because you can't get in a car. You can't call home. So she had to walk all the way. So yeah, it was rough for everyone. But I'll tell you, my grandpa. That's why the funny part about this, my grandpa at the time, the first night where everyone's panicked, after earthquake, there's still those aftershocks every few minutes, I think for a few days,
Wow.
you're still feeling those aftershocks. And you don't want to go sleep inside. Every house is brick house, so you don't know when it can crumble. And the fissures you see everywhere. My grandpa did, like, the first night he went back inside to sleep. He went. So I tell you, you see it everywhere. Like, people get to a certain age, they just don't care what happened anymore. Like, he's like, I'm not sleeping outside. So I'm not sleeping outside. So the first night of the earthquake, he went back inside to sleep. He was like, nothing's gonna happen, and yeah, nothing happened to him. But it was people had different ways to react to it. And so there's so many things that happened, around that time, like just rumors of tsunami, people panicking that same night, thinking that, because we were pretty close to the ocean. So rumors of tsunami, people just leaving their home, running uphill. So there's a lot of stress that happened that same night until people start getting used to what's going on and figuring out a way to live with it, whether it's sleeping outside under the stars, or cooking outside, doing everything, so it was something to get used to, at least for the first couple of nights, and then adjusting from there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. And I message you about that there's things in Haiti are still a bit rough, and if anybody wants to donate, if you want to talk about that, otherwise I'm just going to link the nonprofit here in the description.
Yeah, there's this nonprofit I came across on social media. There's this woman she's been doing some incredible work in Haiti. She's been, I think, mostly in the north of the country, and she's got a team. I hopped on one of their, like, I don't know what they call it, like just their team meeting one time, and talking like the things that they're involved with and what they're trying to do, and like they are the best organization I've seen. Just me being so involved in what's going on with the country. I think their website is P4H Global. They do everything from sponsoring teachers, like giving teachers the skills to teach the younger children and the new generation, helping farmers grow rice. They're building bridges. They're building canals throughout the north of the side of the country, so farmers can grow rice. So they're doing incredible work. The P4Hglobal.org, I believe, there's their website.
Awesome. Yeah, I linked it here.
So, awesome. Thanks.
All right. Eventually, you ended up moving into the United States right around when you were 16 years old. So when you came into the U.S., you only spoke, or mostly spoke, Haitian Creole throughout your life. And you spoke a little bit of English too, but learning a new language on top of regular studies is a difficult task. And then also just the tragedy that you went through. What was it like learning English, moving to a new country, leaving everything behind?
Yeah, the funny thing is, man, you think you know language, in school, until you have to speak it, and especially speaking it with a native speaker. If you're speaking it with someone who, like, is not fluent, of course they speak it differently. They speak slower and maybe more with an accent. You can kind of pick up what they say. But in Haiti, of course, you learn English throughout school. I think first English class in my school started at was it fifth or fourth grade? Very early, like you start learning basic English songs and things like that. So I thought I was pretty fluent in English in Haiti. On paper, I liked school, the state exam, like you had to take a state exam in English. So all of that, I could read and write pretty well and understand English written. But I moved to the States and people were speaking to me. I could not make out a word of what they're saying, right? So like listening and speaking was a whole different ball game. So that's what I had to learn, and just getting used to. I basically getting used to listening, and then also speaking. Like if I remember going to first time going to my school because I had to finish high school here because I left Haiti in 9th or 10th grade and I had to finish high school here. And I remember first time speaking with the what they're calling, I think, guidance counselors, right? And then basically picking the class where I'm mostly suitable. And I remember telling her, hey, probably in the roughest English accent I had at the time, that I told her that I thought I should be in 11th grade because in Haiti there are 13th grade, and I left in 10th grade, which was the equivalent of 11th grade here or something like that. I told her like I would be in 11th grade, and that's where it placed me. I took a placement test. I did fine, so I could write, understand very well. But it's just the listening and of course speaking that just had to come. And I remember the very first night, that was a shocker. For the very first night I came in, I flew in Fort Lauderdale, and there were some the people that received me and my mom at the time. I remember their kids speaking to me and asking me questions. Like when they're asking me questions directly and slowly, I could make out what they're saying. But when they're speaking to each other, it was like a foreign language to me, right? So eventually it just settles in. And I think at the one time where I realized that I had a dream in English, and I told myself, okay, I must understand it now, So I think when my first dream, I realized I spoke in English in my dream. I was like, okay, I think I speak English now. So, but yeah, it's just getting used to the language and knowing, understanding the accent and then finding your way there.
Yeah, and the U.S. can be diverse. I know.
Yeah,
talking to a lot of people that have moved here, something that helps is we export a lot of our media, movies, music. So I know that that's helped a lot of people that have moved over here, and I'm sure that also helped too, I guess before you even got to the U.S.
Yeah, so I do. So some of the, of course, like songs, like songs you know the songs in English, but movies and TV shows, like kids shows at the time, of course, I watched them in French. So what that did to me was like some of the kid movies or kid shows that I watched in French. I don't really remember like the dialogue and what they were about because it's weird because I think I separated that in my mind because at some points people would bring up, oh, you remember this and that? I'm like, yeah, I watched the show as a kid, but in a different language, and I can't connect it anymore to remember what it was about. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, song music and things like that that I would listen to as a kid, American music. You learn that. Yeah, just TV shows and kids shows that were like basically like SpongeBob or what other shows I used to watch. But I do many different shows. They were in French, so I just barely remember. So like the songs, right, would not be the same. Like SpongeBob SquarePants, like saying that, even though they have a similar song, but it's in French. So you don't connect the two until you watch it again, and then you see, okay, oh, this is it's a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that because of Haiti's ties to France.
Okay.
But I guess while we're talking about language, so I have heard of Creole, but I didn't even know that there was a distinction between Louisiana Creole and Haitian Creole. I'm curious if you've ever got to speak to anybody that from Louisiana that speaks Creole about the language.
Yeah, I've met a guy. Before that, I had the same question because I happened to meet a guy who said, "Oh yeah, he understood. He was from Louisiana. I forgot where exactly." And I was like, "Yo, man, I'm Haitian. You know, like we speak Louisiana Creole. Like he knows something." So he said something. I forgot what he said exactly, but he said something in his Louisiana Creole, and it made perfect sense to me. Right. So there is a lot of similarities because in Louisiana, back then during those times, some Haitians migrated to that area, and also some, even what they're called, even some people who were like from, because Louisiana was, of course, under French colony at the time. So French speaking people moved there. So it became that Creole. So there was that mix where people would move from there, from Haiti to Louisiana, or Louisiana to Haiti. So that the language they both have a lot of similarities. And I did go to Louisiana not too long ago, earlier this year, and again, someone said something, and it's the same word, right? And it's cool. Like even some of the food, right? Some of the food people say, it's like, yeah, I know exactly what food this is because that's exactly how we say it in Haiti, and that's the exact same food in Haitian Creole. So there's some similarities there, but it does include a lot of more French words or more French ways of saying things. So I think there's some separation, right, between the two. Because I think, of course, Haitian Creole, because it's spoken by Haitians, it's the national language of the country. So it evolved. I think it's more, it has a lot more words. It's more of its own thing versus Louisiana Creole, when you hear it, if you understand both, you can see like the heavier French influence in it. Yeah.
That's cool that you could at least kind of understand it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was cool. It was the same. And there's some other countries too. There are some other countries that speak a version of the Creole, and they're very similar to Haitian Creole. Haitian Creole being like the one that's most popular and the most spoken because it's the national language of Haiti, and it's in a bigger population. But there's some other countries like Guadeloupe, or Martinique.
Okay. So the islands, right?
Some of the islands, some islands that speak some Creole, have people speak Creole, or Cape Verde. I think they have a version of the Creole too that's very similar to Haitian Creole. So if you have some time, you can find some like people making some comparisons on YouTube, seeing how they sound. You might hear the similarity even if you don't understand it, but yeah, it's close enough that people have fun with like saying the same words, and then kind of find the similarities between them.
Yeah, I assume you can speak some French, so you could say that you know 4 languages now.
Yeah. So French, of course, French is like in Haiti. It's the learned language, right? Unless there are some families, of course, that like the common language spoken at the house is French, but 90% of the population actually learn French in school. So same for me. You go to school's mostly in French. That's where I've learned it. But in my home, my mother's language is Haitian Creole, so that's why I speak at home. Still understanding French, of course. I think the last time I had to actually speak French again since I moved to the States was like I went to France for I was there on the trip, and it came up that they're French speaking people, so let me pull whatever French I still have, whatever native French I still have, and use that. So besides that, I'm a full American. I speak American. I speak American. I speak English and my mother's tongue, and anything else unless I have to.
Yeah.
When I went to Mexico too, I tried to speak a little bit of Spanish, kind of put that to use. So that's when it's cool. Just trying to just use some of the things when it matters.
Yeah, like poquito, poquito.
Yeah.
Yes, the music helps there too.
Yeah. Yeah. The music, the food, so, just, people appreciate it too when they know you're a tourist and you know some words and you can speak even if you're trying. So,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
So I was on a little. So when we went, me and my girlfriend went on a trip to Vietnam about 2 years ago, and like you're saying, I try to pick up a little bit so I can say hello, thank you, like other things like that. And I forget what exactly it was. I think I was trying to say thank you in Vietnamese. And we were doing this coffee tour. So there's a lot of coffee that comes out of Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
We were at a coffee shop and we had a tour guide and we were with a tour group and they were bringing out the coffee. And I said, I thought I was saying thank you to the guy. And then he just like, kind of makes like a face like, and then our tour guy's like, hey, you kind of told him to shut up. And it's like, oh, what? It's like, they shouldn't make those two that close. Yeah. So I was like, all right, let me tip him to apologize.
The two words a little bit too close. A little bit too close.
Yeah.
What were you trying to say? What's the word?
So it was something, it kind of sounds like if it were said in English, come on, but
Okay.
the inflection changes. So I was like saying, come on. And I think it needs to go, come on, something like that. I'm butchering it close. Now. So yeah. So, but I'm going off my memory, and it's been 2 years, but I just remember that. And I was like, God damn, I can't believe I did that.
Hey, you tried, man. You tried.
Yeah. So, all right. So, finish high school. So, after high school, you joined the U.S. Army. What made you decide to join the military?
It was one of these things where, you know, it, as a kid, you always have this idea of being a soldier. Even I had a little bit of that idea when I was in high school. Did ROTC, JROTC for a year
In the United States, right?
Yeah, when I was in in the United States, I was in JROTC in high school. And the thing just came and went. Just like the idea of being a soldier, being in the military. But after high school, I started going to a community college. I started taking, I think I was taking some calculus class. And then after that, I started pursuing IT because I knew I wanted to do IT. That's where my passion was. So I started going to like an IT, like a 9-month program at a vocational school. And then I think it was at the end of that, or maybe sometime, not too long after I graduated from that school, there was a recruiter who was from my town, who happened to meet my cousin, in town. So he you know how when you become a recruiter, they send you wherever. So he happened to go to his hometown and then met my cousin and told my cousin referred him to me and my brother. And next thing you know, I was like, yeah, let's sign up. There was a lot more benefits than anything else. I was like, there's no way I'm not doing this. So it was just like perfect. It was a perfect opportunity. To this day, I say it's the best decision I've made. Joining just allowed me to do everything I wanted to do, and eventually, fast forward till today, it's still the best decision I made because it put me in different careers, different path. And like I said, like I joined in doing something cool. I just the same idea I had, just being in the military. I did that. So yeah, it was kind of like just happened, and then opportunity came up, raised my right hand.
Nice, yeah. It's also you read about it through history. It's so good at integrating people, and it brings people really close together. And a lot of the things that happen in the military might happen first in the military and then wider society, like um, like just desegregation, and then that happens in the U.S. military first, and then wider society, and there's just a lot of cohesion you read about through it.
Yeah, it's a good way of bringing people. I mean, it's a good way to meet all kinds of people. So I've met people who it was the first time being outside of being away from home. Met a guy. It was his first time seeing a computer. We were in the computer room, right? So you meet all kinds of people mixed up together, and this was one of the greatest fighting force. So it's a lot of people in there that make it what it is.
Well, you also had a really cool job. So you worked as a helicopter repairer on a Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawk. Some of these are, I guess, there's so many variants. When I was looking into this, it's like they have it for everything. They have utility ones. They have specialty ones for if you need medical evacuations. They have combat ones. So how did you end up doing it? Was it just the recruiters like, yeah, let me put you here? Or is that something you kind of pursued?
No, I pursued it because the one thing about me at the time, like if I know what I can do, what's possible, like I arm myself with the knowledge that I need and make sure I know everything about it so I can make the best decision. When I took the ASVAB, I had a high score, and the recruiter told me you can get any job.
ASVAB is like a test that's
right. Yeah, the
military.
ASVAB is it's like I can't tell you what it stands for now, but yeah, it is a test. Basically, it's like a battery of tests where you rank across many different categories: math, reading, English, and things like that, and see how you rank against other people who have taken the tests, right? So when I took the test and I had the highest the score that qualified me for any job, the recruiter told me, as long as it's available. So I took that. I was okay, I'm good. I went home and started looking everywhere, looking at jobs. I didn't know what jobs were available in the military besides, not having an idea what being in the military is about.
Yeah.
I didn't know like specific jobs. So, just from research, I looked into medical jobs, like radiologist, being a medic, doing IT. And then I think I came across helicopters, right? So in Indianapolis, okay, let me see what's available in helicopters. So I started looking at UH-60, 64, which is Apache, Chinook. So I'm like, okay, which one of these is the best? So I will drill down in Apache and realize Apache is 2 pilots. And then I was like, okay, I want to be able to fly in it since I found out, you can become a crew chief. So I narrowed it down to Chinook and Blackhawks. So I'm like comparing Blackhawks and Chinooks, realizing Blackhawks, and I see them everywhere. Like I know what they are. They look cool to me. Drill down into, okay, now where can I be? Where can I go as a Blackhawk maintainer and eventually a crew chief? And I'm like, I'm in the military. I want to be able to travel. So I'm looking at where the duty stations are, right? I'm doing all of that just on Reddit, on the internet, everywhere. Just looking at where people go if they're a Black Hawk mechanic. And I'm looking at, there's Korea, there's Germany, Hawaii. I mean, those places sound cool to me. So after, I don't know how long it took me, but I knew I knew pretty much everything I needed to know about, doing that job. Not like outside of the technical stuff, but I knew okay, if I get this job, these are the places I can be stationed at. This is what the job is like. Things like so. When I finished my research, I told the recruiter, this is the job I want. Took me to the station. And then, I told them, I think they gave me the job right away to say it was available. They had to make a phone call. Yeah, they usually have to tell you, I have to make a phone call. It's not available now. I think he said he had to make a phone call, but gave me the job. And yeah, best decision I made. It was a cool job. It was one of the coolest jobs, if not the coolest, maybe outside of flying the helicopter itself. It was a cool job to have. Did everything, things I've seen in the movies. So yeah, it was fun. You just came up for me to just qualify for it. And I took it from there. Just realized I came across it, realized it, and then yeah, it's just future. It was
That's
the future
awesome.
of the future of my career. That's where I started.
Yeah, so I mean, looking into Blackhawks, they're very complicated machines. I'm just kind of curious, what were some of your day-to-day tasks like?
So it's I mean, outside of the military, of course, you do physical activities, PT, um, you go to chow, and at some point at 9 o'clock, you go to do your job. So it just there is a hangar, so you work at the hangar as a mechanic, Black Hawk mechanic. So there are aircrafts in the hangar. So you things that you do every day, where I think it's PMD, if I'm not forgetting those words, those terms. So there's maintenance you do every day on the aircraft, right? Making sure, everything from tires are good, nothing's cracked, nothing is broken, the blades are still good, um, radio's working, uh, aircraft has fuel, everything like that, right? These are like the checks you can do every day on the aircraft, especially before you fly. And then there are some maintenance where you do actually, where something is actually broken, right? Maybe the tires and flight need to be replaced. You can do everything from replacing a tire, changing a blade, changing an engine, where like the more complex the job is, of course, the more people it involved. And the less complex, of course, the less people. Like, could be something you're doing on your own, be something that requires at least 2 or 3 people, or it could be something that once you find out how complex the problem is, you may have to send it somewhere else for it to be fixed. So yeah, it's just being like the mechanic. You just have whatever task it is you have to do on the aircraft. It could be something simple that needs to be fixed, or it could be something complex where it requires 2 or 3 people, or even sending it somewhere to a depot to be fixed. Depends on the day.
Yeah. I also should have mentioned, so Blackhawks, they're the helicopters
Right. Yeah.
rotary wing, right?
Yeah.
So
Rotary. Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah,
because
rotary. The cool looking ones. Rotary with 2 doors. So you have 2 pilots up front and at least 1 crew chief in the back. The crew chief is usually a mechanic, and if you're in what they call a medical unit, right? Like a medevac unit, like you mentioned earlier, you will also have a medic who sits in the back. So you have a crew chief, a mechanic, and a medic in the back. Sometimes you can have 2 crew chiefs, in the back. So yeah, Blackhawk is that type of helicopter. You can do everything. It's designed to be a utility helicopter.
yeah. So one of the things I was curious about is that I know a couple pilots, and you have the stereotypical vision of a pilot, Tom Cruise, very smart, ambitious, cocky, but a little over their skis sometimes. What's the relationship between the pilots and you as the crew chief, or you as the helicopter repairer?
Yeah. So like in those jobs, and like we were saying earlier, like the military is a microcosm of society, right? So the same work relationship you would have, in a civilian job at work, where you might be cool with someone, or you think someone is kind of rude, or for lack of a better word. So it was like that with pilots. So I had some pilots I knew, just like, man, this is the best pilot I know. He fly around, good and cool guy to be around, And you have some other pilots where, like, this guy's a jerk. Like, I don't really want to fly with him, or think he's better than everybody, the type of deal, right? So, but for the most part, you get along pretty well, because you work with the person every day. Say if you go on duty, you go on duty together. So there's that camaraderie that evolves from that. Yeah, it's just you find all those types of people you're talking about. One that can be humble but really good at their job, and one that just, just had the same idea that you have, right? So there's a range there. But for the most part, it's a small community. All right. So there's not a lot of like, most people like know, um, like someone in that duty station or someone who was at that duty station. So plenty of times you might meet someone like who you knew back then, and then like they're stationed somewhere where you've been, and then met the people you've met. So it's a small community in that sense where there's pretty cool relationship between the crew. So maybe between the crew chief and the pilots. So it was good. Hey, it was good. There's no one that I didn't get along with beside, of course, like I said, just knowing what the personality this guy has, so you gotta have to deal with them with the way they are.
Yeah, that one guy that thinks he's Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or girl.
Yeah. So that's what it is.
Yeah. So I mean the Black Hawk can do a lot of things. Looking it up, you had it looks like you can lift up to around 9,000 pounds or 4,000 kilograms. What's the heaviest object you had to tie up to the Black Hawk?
I'd say a Humvee.
That's pretty cool.
I think that's about the heaviest we would carry. And with that, because planes or helicopters, just like plane, they're complicated things. So like the weight of the helicopter, how much it's carrying, like everything has to be accounted for. I think the Humvee was probably the heaviest we had to carry, and with that, we had to we had to strip some things from the cabin to kind of account for the weight. But before that, do some training between like transporting like what they call like a water buffalo, right? That was like the most common thing. Just easier to do that versus a Humvee, where it's usually when a unit is training or doing, and like they're training on actually how to tie a Humvee to a helicopter. And then we would get selected for this type of training mission. And then, I think the Humvee was the heaviest I've carried around. But most of the time, it's usually smaller things like a what do they call it? A pallet of just brick, just big wooden pallet, right? Or like I said, like those water tanks. There's a much smaller carry around.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty wild. So, you mentioned that you eventually became a crew chief. Did you ever get to be a door gunner? I don't know if they trained that and you actually got to shoot, and what was that experience like?
Oh yeah. I bring that up all the time. If the conversation turns around, comes to it, I tell people that I've shot a gun, from a moving vehicle is usually how I put it. You can't get cooler than that. So so I was in a unit where we had to train on being a door gunner. And it's one of the coolest things. Like I said, things you as a kid you see in the movie, and then you get to do it. Like there's nowhere else where you get to do that job legally. So I became I did door gunnery. I think at least twice. Yeah. You have the big machine gun, what they call it, M240. I hope I'm not forgetting these guns names and I'm not butchering it. So yeah, 244 or 240. Yeah. So anyways, so you have the big gun inside the helicopter. And then it's kind of like it's training, so it's very methodical. Like you have some things you have to do. At the end of the day, like it's a job, right? But it's a cool job, right? It's not like you can just willy-nilly just put everything on there and start going, Rambo on everything. But this is a very methodical training. Like there are some things you're supposed to do, right? And then you have targets you aim, you have the proper calls you're supposed to make, making sure you clear the shoot and things like that. And then once you get the shoot, you just you let it rip. So yeah, I've done that at least a couple of times on those missions. It's cool. It's cool.
Do they set up targets in a field that you have to hit?
Yeah. They'd
Okay.
have targets. They'd have targets in the field, pretty wide field. Of course, you're not supposed to shoot at anything that's not a target, right? It's training. You can't shoot at animals or things like that. But yeah, it's targets, and then you have to do it at night too. So there's that. So at night, you'd have a tracer rounds. Basically, tracer rounds are like let's say you can put a tracer round with every three rounds in your magazine, so you can actually see where the rounds are landing. You can see the tracer rounds light up at night, so you can see the spark from the bullet. So it's cool at night. You can actually see where your rounds are hitting. So you're not just shooting blind. And you do have goggles too, so you can see, even outside of seeing the spark from the bullets, you can see through your night vision goggles. So
yeah, that is very cool. So
it was cool. I tell people, as recently as like a month ago, it came up like some things that might be believable about you, and I was like, yeah, I shot a gun outside, from a moving vehicle. I was kind of cool.
That is a good fun fact when they ask for one at work. I'm sure it's like, yeah,
right.
I got a good one. So I was actually talking to another helicopter pilot in preparation for this, and I was like, hey, like, what should I ask? And he's like, yeah, ask him if he's had any close calls. Where I was like, okay, like, I guess maybe I'll ask him that.
Yeah.
So have you had any close calls where there's turbulence in the air and it's like, oh man, I hope I don't fall out of here?
Right. No, close calls. So yeah, things like that. I think they're inevitable. Like those, I wouldn't call them close calls, but just moments where you become very aware of like what kind of situation you are in and what the worst possible scenario could look like and how fast it can happen. Right. So I've never, had close calls with like in combat or anything like that. But things like, flying a long flight and realizing, because at some point I did a mission where we had to fly over the English Channel. We flew from Germany to the UK and back the same night. And flying so high and realizing you're over the channel and it's at night, you realize all the things that can go wrong. You're just kind of like very aware and you just like making sure everything's going right. I remember that flight. Everyone was so serious in the cabin. There's no joking around. It's kind of flight was kind of sketchy. I think it was because of weather and things like that. So flight was kind of sketchy, but we make sure everyone was doing what they're supposed to do. And I remember, by the time we finally landed, and you could hear a deep sigh out of everyone on the microphone. Right? It's just like we made it through this thing, right? So it's always one of those. It happens whether you're just flying, straight through a bad weather, like that you get caught in bad weather that probably can't avoid, and you just it's business time, right? It's go time. Make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to do. Pilots are in their A game. So they're flying the thing, right? And crew chiefs in the back, what they can help with, making sure the pilots are doing what they're supposed to do. Because, pilots can, they can make mistakes too, or whatever's happened. So everyone's doing their job, right? While you're flying through those situations to make sure, everyone, lands safely. So I think I've had plenty of those moments where like it sounds or looks sketchy. And then he's just making sure like, let's do this job so we can land safely. And by the time you land, you can see and feel the relief from everyone. And it's kind of one of those.
I
Yeah,
get
plenty of those. Yeah.
I get nervous when I'm flying like in a regular plane over the ocean. I
Right.
don't think I
So
could do a helicopter
that
flight over the ocean.
no, it is sketchy. I've said I would never fly in a helicopter in a civilian world. I would never fly civilian in a civilian helicopter. Like I see the complexity of that aircraft. I see like how many things that can go wrong. I've seen, how good the pilots have to be. And I've seen that, how often military pilots train, right? They fly every day. And I don't think you get the same in a civilian pilot unless they, that's what they do every day. I don't know if they actually fly and train every day and become confident, fly in any kind of weather, any kind of situation, whether it's, maybe making sure that if they're flying in bad weather, that they're actually flying the way they're supposed to fly, like relying on tower to guide them and not trying to, think they tough it out, things like that, right? Because I think civilian world, they may not have as many regulation as the military, right? And I see how militaries and the pilot train to be good and to do what they're supposed to do in this situation. So after I got, I was done with that job. I would say, I don't know if I would ever fly a civilian pilot because I don't trust, their training. And I've seen what training should looks like in the military. And I don't think the civilian pilots are doing the same helicopter that is, because helicopters, it's different from flying a plane,
Yeah, I agree with you. Unfortunately the statistics aren't too good. I think I'm no expert in this, but when you kind of look at it, it does seem like maintenance is like a big part of it because yeah, and I just a brief story about my cousin. So my cousin, he doesn't fly helicopters, but he's flown those Cessnas, which are little small planes, and he was flying with his dad at the time, and my understanding is that they didn't get the fuel, like they didn't calculate how much fuel they needed. So he ended up having to do not a crash landing, but he had to do a pretty hasty landing.
Emergency landing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
emergency landing into a cornfield. And there was a farmer, she was out there and she was trying to help get him down. And it's like, yeah, I'm not sure if he's flown since then, but yeah.
Okay.
I have not been on a small plane and I have not been in a helicopter and I'm not really looking to do
it. It can get pretty scary. Like the Cessna, I think it's single engine, right? So if one engine goes down, it's at least it can glide. With the plane, you can glide, but usually like you don't have those options. Which reminds me, on that topic, I did have a situation like that where we thought an engine was on fire because the fire signal came on in the cockpit. And then we looked outside, didn't see or smell fire, but by rules and regulation and according to the proper procedures, you're supposed to do an emergency landing. So we landed in somebody's farm immediately. We found a farm, say, hey, something is telling us the engine is on fire, and we better put this thing down to check it out. So I found a field for the pilots. Hey, we got something over there. This, distance, direction, and description. Told them where to land. Put it there in somebody's farm. Checked out the helicopter, make sure nothing was going wrong, and then deal with the probably paying the damages later. But what was important at the time is just putting that helicopter on the ground wherever possible. So that was one of those situations too. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine because not only is our helicopters complex. I was looking one up. They're yeah, I'm sure the Army buys it at scale, so just by itself would be more expensive. But one of the Black Hawk variants I was looking up costs like $40 million. It's like,
yep,
that's a good amount of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. And maintenance on that thing is like you said too. Maintenance is a different program. It's different different cost from just buying the aircraft itself. So yeah, very, very expensive machines.
Yeah. So you did about 4 years in the military, and then you ended up going to Arizona State for university. And as you were saying, and you were always interested in going into IT and cybersecurity. That's what you ended up studying. And you were one of only 4 soldiers that received a scholarship from the military out of thousands of soldiers. So that's pretty impressive. But you mentioned IT. Was there a reason why you wanted to focus on cybersecurity?
So I think I picked that up. Cybersecurity. I think I picked that up sometime before or when I was in the army. Like I was enlisted, and I wanted because the army had a cyber domain, a cyber branch that was pretty new around the time, and I wanted to get into that. And cybersecurity was pretty big, even then too. But I was also doing something where I also like do a little hacking here and there, what hacking is and things like that. So I was doing these things on my own, right? But yeah, I think just cybersecurity as a field piqued my interest when I was like looking into doing a different like IT job in the army, and I found out about the cyber branch that was pretty new at the time. I was like, I really like this. And I just put everything I had behind it. So going up, getting that scholarship, going to college, and then focusing in cybersecurity. That's what got me there.
Nice. So you also, while you were at university, enrolled in Army Reserve Officer Training Corps, often referred to as ROTC. So to give a quick summary of the U.S. military, you have enlisted soldiers, which is what you went in as initially, and that makes up the vast majority of the military in the U.S. And then you have officers who have leadership position, and ROTC prepares you to be an officer. What was your experience like in the ROTC program at Arizona State?
It was like it's like kind of like being a civilian, being a student, and being in the military at the same time. Essentially, it is a little bit shy of military school, or it's not 100%. You don't go to class with military uniform all the time, but we still wake up early in the morning to for physical training, PT, right? And we still take like the same physical training test that you would take in the army. And then you go have those military science classes, right? So that actually teaches about the military history, being an officer, what the military is about. Just the whole thing about just what it is to become an officer in the army, right? But yeah, it's just like it wasn't. It was still kind of like it was kind of different for me because I coming from an aviation where aviation was kind of like to me it was like the cool side of the army, cool side of the military. Like yeah, we're in the military, but we don't walk everywhere. We don't ruck everywhere. We don't walk everywhere. Like if we're going somewhere in the field, we fly, right? That's part of our job. We fly, so we don't walk. We don't take. We don't get in a convoy. We don't go in Humvees and things like that. So we fly to the field, stay in the field, stay in the tent, and when we're done flying, we're just relax, right? Just kick back because you're supposed to relax as part of an air crew. But in the military science class, like in ROTC, you still do like those basics of military, going in the field, rocking everywhere. So I had to go back to like, wow, being in the military science class in ROTC, it's like, that when I rocked, it had been some time since then, since I rocked actually when I was actually in the army,
And
because I think before
rocking, you have like a huge backpack
right.
with weight in
Yeah,
it.
big, yeah. So it was like, that I hadn't done that since. I think I would do that when I was on active, for like a competition, right? Those things usually come up. Like you have to do a competition, basic military things, like right, you have to ruck a certain distance under a certain time, right? But I suppose doing it like regularly, that was not part of my job, right? 'Cause I was a crew member. I fly in a helicopter. So, but besides that, it was a great experience, just learning and then seeing, people's aspirations for becoming officers. Like I said, in the microcosm part, right? You just see different type of people coming in the military with different motivations. But overall, it was a great experience just going through that and being able to go from active as an enlisted, seeing that transition, right? Come where I'm going to class, or basically going to taking regular college classes in addition to military science classes, putting the uniform, maybe like 3 times out of the week, and then coming on the other side of it, being an officer in the Army. So it was a great program. I 100% recommend it for people who have aspirations of becoming an officer.
Awesome. So while you were at university, I know at one point you mentioned the app that you were working on, Big Up Local. So I'm working on my own app right now, and it's kind of my first time doing front end stuff, and I'm also so some of the back end stuff is new too, and using a lot of AWS stuff for it. But it's a pretty big undertaking. Can you talk about what the app did and what it was built for?
But let me say, I don't know how you remember all this stuff, man. Because I know we talked. It's been a while since we talked.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me see. So I started this app thing because I think I was just curious with being a programmer and development. But when I was going to school initially, like before I went to college, I was interested in being like a network engineer, right? Like networking was kind of like the peak of IT for me because I went to, I was saying earlier, after high school, I went to this 9-month program where I was learning. It was basically a CCNA program, which is Certified Cisco Network Associate, right? So it was about networking, just doing all these things, how to interconnect small, medium, large enterprise networks and things like that. So I was very fascinated with that. And then go in the Army, I picked up, I might want to do cybersecurity. And now I'm in college while I'm working on IT and cybersecurity. Like, you know what? Let me try this development, this program.
Let me do more.
Right. So I'm like, I took a Java class. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Best thing to learn is just dive straight in it. And then I started looking into developing an app for Android. I had an Android at the time. And so it got me Android Studio. And I had an idea for what I wanted to do, which is big up this, which was big around the time, with, no pun intended. It is like, I wanted to just not only see if I can bring this idea to fruition, but also learn in the process. So it was a big undertaking, but it was fun. I even to a point where I pivoted to try to make it something else. But it is a process. You definitely have to keep at it. It's just kind of like you're learning. If nothing else, you're learning from it, and if that interests you, it's a win. So it's it's just something I started like that just for learning purposes, and then it became something else. And then once I was done with that, it's like, you know what? Everybody, most people in the United States, the demographics for like the business I had in mind, the audience was iPhone owners, right? So I'm like, I need to learn how to develop for iPhones, right? So picked up, what is it, Xcode, and
Was it Swift?
started to learn Swift. Yeah, I started to learn Swift. And then that became another thing. So it was kind of like that, just picking up things I want to learn along the way and just making sense of it. And then nowadays it's just I need to, you can't avoid AI nowadays. So right now I need to, I'm working, okay, I need to find, a little project doing in artificial intelligence or machine learning, just to, uh, like, learn, just keep up what's going on. If not for myself, but, you know, for a few people, if I can make something useful.
AI, just another tool in the toolbox. I guess, I mean, what I usually do is I'm a machine learning engineer, but really doing a lot of data engineering. But AI, it's when I have something I'm trying to figure out, some sort of code, especially if I'm working with a language or maybe database that I'm not too used to, I'll ask ChatGPT or Gemini, but also documentation's good. So it's just another resource for me.
Yeah, it is. Mhm. It is there. Yeah, it is. It's right now every company is jumping on board. Like, everyone's jumping on board. There's some hype around it, but there's also, you know, things are changing around it and trying to fit into what AI is bringing, or also change it with, because of what AI is bringing to, those bigger companies are trying to integrate AI everywhere they can. So I think everyone's learning. Even if big companies are learning how to do it, might as well jump on board and learn. Like, I learn along the way.
Yeah. So I will say on AI coding, there was a issue recently where I was trying to do something outside of work, and I was relying heavily on AI, and I was just spending so much time figuring out how to prompt it. And then I thought about it, was like, if I just read this in the documentation, just like in the Go documentation, it would have been much faster, and I would have actually learned something instead of trying to figure out how to get ChatGPT to give me an answer. So it's like, okay, let's say, let me, yeah. So there's times that like even I have to like pull back and be like, okay, I gotta stop because this isn't helping me.
No, 100%. You definitely can find yourself in the rabbit hole. Excuse me, where you're just learning more. You're just trying to learn more of like how to, get the response you want versus, knowing what to, how to get the response. So but it's like that. But it's fun to, as you found it, it's fun when you get what you want. It can be fun, but you just gotta be careful. But yeah, I know you say you're working on some apps. I don't know if like what field you said.
Yeah, so it's an educational app. It's
Okay.
super early innings in terms of what it's being done. I am using AWS for the cloud compute for it and to host some stuff for it. But yeah, I'm hesitant to go into it too much. It is online right now, but right now I haven't let anybody sign up. It's called Calcan Code.
Calculate code. Okay.
Yeah. So
That's cool.
yeah, I don't know. I might change the name eventually, but
No,
really,
it flows. The name flows.
yeah. So
Calculate code. Yeah,
yeah, it can't be too long. It's got to be like
you right. Yeah.
catchy, but we'll see. I'm thinking of if I can get it by the semester, setting up uh, extra credit assignments on the site. So it's something like a combination of a learning management system. So do you remember when you were in school, Canvas or Blackboard?
Yep.
So
Yep.
combination of
Mhm.
that, and then also using open source material. So you have proprietary sources of material like Pearson, McGraw-Hill. Those are the textbooks that you either rent from them or you have some sort of subscription. But there's still a lot that needs to be done, and right now, the proprietary textbooks, that's a big part of it. But there's growing open source at this point. It's knowledge is so easy to pass through that I think the open source is going to be a big part of it. So aggregating the open source and be like, hey, instead of having to pay $50 if you actually want to buy it, or like more likely you're going to do some sort of subscription for $6 a month or $10 a month. Why not use an open source textbook that's been vetted, and that's good. So that it's along those lines. So still in the very early innings of this, though. So we'll see if it actually turns into anything.
I like it, man. I think you're being modest. So whenever send the link to me whenever whenever it's ready, send the link and
I'll let you be. Let me know how the UX UI looks.
Right. Absolutely, man. That'll be awesome.
Yeah. So you, after you graduated from Arizona State, you started working at Amazon Web Services. A lot of people know it as AWS. You were a cloud associate, and then eventually you became a cloud engineer. So I think cloud was the big word. It's still huge. Like everybody uses the cloud.
Okay.
Can you talk about what is cloud computing? Because everybody just, even I think about like cloud computing, think about a cloud with a computer in it. But like, what is it in reality?
No, it's funny you say that, because I remember from like early on when everyone was talking about cloud, even people who were in that field, like you would hear them actually describing like something in the cloud, like almost literally, you know. So no, I do remember that, like more than a few times. But anyway, so cloud computing is basically the you have things that you need to run services on the internet, right? Whether it be a website or maybe it's an application that is accessible on the internet, right? You need servers, you need processing units, you need storage to run all of that, right? Traditionally, as an individual, you usually rent these things from you rent the hardware from people, right? Or if you're really that tech savvy, you have your own servers at home that you can run your applications on, or your website and things like that, right? Traditionally, those bigger companies that provided these services had data centers that they had these services on. Cloud computing is basically it's a bigger aspect of that. It's just companies like AWS or Azure or Oracle, things like that. They provide those hardware, this infrastructure, like your servers, your processing unit, your memory, your everything that you need to run services on the internet. They provide it for you, and you access it through your browser, right? So basically, essentially, those people own the data center, and everything that they run is hosted somewhere that you don't know of. You don't have to worry about, but you can access all of these services through your browser, right? That's essentially is cloud computing. That's the simplest way I can think of putting it. Excuse me. It's just accessing the same services that people would host in a data center, but it's very much it's a little bit more abstracted from the user. Even big enterprises now, right? They don't need to have data centers to host their application. They can offload that to AWS or Azure or someone else who has those data centers, and then they access those services through a browser, through an interface. So that is essentially what cloud computing is.
Yeah. Just on running servers inside of house. Like I'm not doing that. I have like my PC with the GPU on it, and now I set up like a second computer, and this room gets so hot. Just have to blast my AC.
Yeah. No, that's see now if you offset that, if you offload that to AWS, your room can stay cool, and maybe a data center somewhere will get the heat.
Yeah.
So, that's how it works.
Well, that's like when, so obviously like data centers have you ever visited a data center? I've actually never been inside of one.
No, I haven't. I usually hear good things, like cool things people just get, it's a good experience for them, like how everything is set up very organized, and like the number of uh, hardware that the people usually talk about, just like, or it's just usually talk about all these good things they see at data centers. But I've never been to a data center.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah.
I mean, like the United States in particular, there's so many data centers built here. That's one of the things that we build a lot of, and I I just like, I get kind of surprised when I know I guess the way that you build the building, it can be made to cool it, but like when they open data centers in really hot places like Arizona and
Right.
Texas,
Yeah.
I'm like that's a bit hot.
It's probably not a good idea, but they use a lot of energy too. You got to keep the place cool. Right. If you
Yeah,
got two computers in there and the room's already hot,
yeah.
yeah, you can imagine, yeah, the amount of hardware that they have to run in there. Yeah, it's a lot of money to keeping those places cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's so you worked at Amazon. Amazon has a lot of different services that they offer. We were mostly talking about cloud compute. So you have some sort of virtual machine that's being hosted at some sort of data center, and you have access to this computer online, basically. Were there any other AWS tools that you worked with, like AWS Glue or SageMaker, things like that?
No, not SageMaker. I think that's for like that's probably your field, right? More of data science. Um, Glue a little bit because of doing some like data pipeline pulling from S3 and things like that, but not really for my day-to-day job. When I was working there, I was supporting more of the security services in AWS. So things like Cognito, which is basically like a user authentication, with AWS. You have security managers or secrets manager, things like IAM. So it was just like the security services in AWS, which were to me, I mean, that's what I knew that they were the fun fun services, right? Because like you kind of you need them with whatever you're doing. You need IAM, which is
Like identity
identity,
access
yeah,
management or
access
something. Yeah.
management, yeah, the identity access management. So secrets manager is basically where you would store your usernames and passwords, so you don't store them in clear text, so people don't see them who are not supposed to see them. So things like that. So these are some of the services I worked on while I was over there. Yeah.
Gotcha. So just on the cybersecurity front of the cloud, so there's this concept of zero trust. I was wondering, how did that factor in, if at all, in your work at AWS?
Um, Zero trust, yes. You have that. Let's see. There isn't. Trying to see if we had an example that I could provide. But yeah, zero trust is essentially, not trusting, not trusting anything that's coming into the system. So we have that, I guess, in the concept of like IAM, right? Identity access management. So basically attaching permissions to anything that's going to use a service, right? Or that's going to access something in your S3 bucket, right, where you store your files and things like that. So essentially, the security part definitely is zero trust is like is a theme of the security, right? Because you want to make sure, like, whatever's coming in to access your data, you want to make sure they have proper authorization. And then that IAM is one of the big services that came up with that. And like I said, to Cognito is something you use to make sure, like, whoever you can authenticate and authorize your users before they access whatever resources you want them to access.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I mostly I've been developing on the cloud, but
Mhm.
now I'm starting to, especially doing my own thing, starting to have to manage like cloud computing instances like EC2. What are some common cloud misconfigurations that you've seen or that people run into often?
Um,
They have a
that
bunch
I've
of
seen.
ports open or something.
Right. I was gonna say usually people leaving. I've seen people having their creating EC2s with like port 22 like default port open like out on the internet, and maybe like requires maybe some passwords, right? So EC2 is basically having a computer in the cloud, right? And if you leave it open for anyone to access on the internet, it doesn't take that long for a bot to find it. It's pretty amazing, which you probably see come across too. You can literally have a computer or a server that's open to the internet, and you can just within minutes, maybe you can see like how many bots are trying to access it. So it's usually a bad idea. Like if you have to have something accessible over the internet, and that concept of zero trust is paramount, right? You definitely then don't want to, uh, allow access for those who shouldn't have access, right? Even if the service was private, right? Even if the service is private, the zero trust is important. So you want to make sure everyone who's coming in is, have the authorization. But leaving things like that public and little to no security is a big no-no. I wouldn't say that I've seen that, but I know it's happened before. I know it's easy to let happen because you have to know how to configure it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I guess the last question I have in cybersecurity in terms of cybersecurity, I asked a previous guest this, but was there a cybersecurity event that has happened, could have happened any time 10 years ago, 20, 30, 40, that you were reading about it or reading about it in the news and you're like, wow, that's pretty wild that happened?
Yeah. And there's been quite a few big ones, right? These past, I don't know, over the last decade. One that I'd say that actually, kind of affected me was like the Colonial pipeline, if you remember. I think that happened in 2021, May 2021.
Okay, yeah. So during COVID, yes, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, right. So I say kind of indirectly affected me is because I didn't know what happened. I was in North Carolina around the time, and I needed gas, and I'm driving around. I'm like, why is there a line at every gas station? So I'm like, it's kind of strange. And I drove to the next gas station. There was a line. I mean, just longest line I've seen. And then I'm driving everywhere. And I was like, that can't be right. Right. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll just go back to the hotel and then, figure out how to get gas another time. And then I'm telling the clerk at the hotel, I say, hey, there's people like gas, and there's a shortage of gas in this town. And there's oh yeah, there's something that happened, and there's the cybersecurity. And then when I looked it up, and sure enough, it was the Colonial pipeline, right? Which was, I think, some hackers got a hold of Colonial pipelines infrastructure through some I think VPN leaked passwords, right? So they were able to access that. So when things like that, infrastructure gets affected, people lose their mind. They want to make sure they have what they need. So I guess gas, the words got out, and the people needed to. So people were making sure they had the gas, kind of like toilet paper during COVID, right?
Yeah.
So it goes to show you, man, the panic that can ensue when something like that happens. COVID, it was toilet paper. The pipeline all around, because I was in North Carolina. I think the pipeline is in South Carolina, right, or Georgia. I don't remember, but I think all along the East Coast, the people were having the same like panic, right? They all the gas shortage. People were just making sure they have all the gas and panic and things like that. So yeah, it was interesting for me to just be in it, not even realizing until like, oh, this is what it looks like. So, and it could be worse.
Yeah. Everything's electrified as soon as the power is affected a little bit, or
Right.
any supply chains affected. Everybody's, it makes sense because like you think about how complex everything is nowadays. Like, I get Amazon Prime packages or things like that. Just everything like that. that supply chain, that we've done a pretty good job in making that
Right.
robust, but it can also
Yeah.
get
But something
disrupted.
breaks.
Yeah.
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 It happens. It's
Yeah.
scary.
So I was thinking about cybersecurity events that that happened recently. So there's there are gangs in Southeast Asia that do something, they call it pig butchering. Or
Pig butchering?
Yeah, pig butchering scams. So these are usually gangs that have, I think a lot of people have heard of click farms, where you like pay people in a country that is relatively less off to do things like boost your Instagram followers or things like that.
Yeah.
But these pig butchering places, they're usually run by these gangs, and what they do is they do social engineering, usually people in the United States or Western Europe, because relatively richest part of the world. And they do these very, very long scams where it could be like an investment, especially crypto related, where they're like, hey, and they go back and forth with this person. Usually it's an older person for a while. And then the person might wire 5,000, 10,000, even more to it. And then they'll never hear again, or on dating apps. So there have been older people I've heard about. And I recently heard a story about a friend of a friend whose grandpa almost, like, he was talking to this woman from somewhere in Southeast Asia, and he was gonna wire her like 5K, and it's like, oh. But yeah, it's pretty wild, and like they've gotten into such significant businesses that they have multiple people, like hundreds in some cases, working on these scams, and it brings in enough money where like they can live off it. It's wild.
Well, yeah, I've heard that. I've never heard that. You said pig butchering?
Yeah,
but
yeah. I think it like that term originally came from the Chinese term, but that's what they call it.
Yeah, I've never heard that term before. But yeah, I hear fraud. Fraud is big business, man. They're always coming out with new ways of defrauding unsuspecting people out there. I tell my mother the other day, hey, I quizzed her. Say, hey, if someone reach out to you and it sound like me and say to send them some money, what do you do? Right? It's like, if someone reach out to you and ask you, they sent you some money in error and they want you to send it back, what do you do? She tells me, just gonna ignore it. So I'm like, because they older folks usually are not up to speed with the different ways that can be, so they're not tech savvy, so they're coming up with new ways, and they just got to be successful once or a couple of times, and it's probably what all they need. So unfortunately, fraud is everywhere.
Yeah. So on the cybersecurity scams, I've gotten very paranoid with my email, and if I don't recognize it, like, good chance I'll do junk, but a lot of times I'll report it as phishing, and it's I've just become so paranoid with my email nowadays.
Yeah, it's I do like the opposite of that. I actually, the scam email, text that you get, I entertain them. Full disclaimer, I entertain them. They say, hey, like this, I don't know if you get these where they act like they got the wrong number, right? They're saying you, hey, so and so, long time no see, and I just reply to them, say, yeah, how's it going? I just string them along, so waste their time until I've had enough, and I realize, I tell them I know what they got going on. I remember in one instance, someone said, "Oh yeah, I'm such and such. It's it was nice to meet you." And I say, "Hey, you got the wrong number." And they say, "Oh, you're not so and so." Like, no, I'm not. It's, "Oh well, you sound nice. You know, I'm this person." And they spell the name one way, and then further along, when I say, "Okay, whatever, nice to meet you," when I know it's a scammer, and and I asked him for their name again, and it spelled it a different way. And I'm like, I thought your name was this. And they said, "Oh yeah, it is." I'm like, "What? Well, this is what you said your name was." And then that's the last time I heard from them. So sometimes I just entertain it, just waste their time.
Yeah.
Maybe if I waste their time, that's taken away from them scamming. I'm not somebody else.
It's a lot because I have a buddy that does that, but he does it with calls a lot, and he's so he can get very angry. He's cursing people out on the phone, and is like, "What do you do?" And then, but the issue with that is because you would think if he does that, it's like, oh, don't call this guy, but instead he's getting like 20 calls a day now, and he's
that's true.
Yeah, it is like, dude, I just change your number. This is wild. I don't know how you could put up with this. I don't want to curse anybody out.
Yeah.
let alone do it 20 times a day.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. Once they find out your number is valid, for some reason you keep getting more. So I took a break from just like actually responding. They somehow, somewhere they say, okay, this guy is real, is a real person. It just, I don't know, the number gets just get distributed in the fraud network or something. I don't know.
Yeah. What I recommend people do if they can is get a VoIP, a voice over internet. I forget what the P stands for, but it's basically like Google. At this point, they're doing Google Voice. You could get it for free, but if you need to sign up for something, you're like, I don't know about this. It's worth doing, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have a Google Voice number that I use I got one just to use for like business, like having it on a website and something like that, because the bots will scrape your website and can send, and then scam it, or spam it. But I do have Google Voice that I can put on public websites and things like that. But it is a good idea to have at least that as a backup for the public.
All right. Well, now that we're getting to the end, let's get into the fun questions. So you said when you were thinking about getting to the Army, a big part of it was where different places I could check out, like Hawaii. What's the coolest place you got to go to?
Coolest, man, I've been everywhere. That cool place. I think I went to the Sistine Chapel, right? So that was cool. So seeing all of the art in the ceiling art, and seeing the what's the name of that Michelangelo art, with it goes like this, right?
Oh man, I
forgot the name now. Yeah, that probably sounds very ignorant.
I have not. No, I mean, like, I haven't been to Italy, so I know what you're talking about. The little.
Yeah, I forgot the name. It can come to me right now.
I'll put an image of that right here.
Yeah, it's the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. Is it in the Vatican? I think so. In Rome. That was really cool. I've been to what I played landscape wise, as like that I like was Austria. Like seeing Austria, I think maybe around spring. Like the mountainside just looks like a wallpaper. It's just like lush green on the mountains, like nice, beautiful trees. It was really nice to see. I remember seeing, like, driving by in Austria, seeing just like, but this is like looking at a wallpaper, like an edited image, but it was just right in front of you. So, yeah. So I in Austria had left the countryside, left a really nice impression on me, and seeing cool places like I said, in the Sistine Chapel, and yeah, I've been to where is another place that I liked? In what's that place? Pisa, like the Leaning Tower.
Oh yeah,
right. That's
Leaning
another
Tower,
cool
Pisa.
one.
Yeah,
The name's not coming to me right now, but I did.
It might be
The
Pisa.
yeah, Pisa. Yeah. So yeah, I had a good time some of these places. Yeah. Amsterdam was cool too. I like Amsterdam because you can just travel on bikes. So I remember just like being a tourist, just picked up a bike anywhere, just riding around the city like I'm from there, you know. So I like went there, went to that Van Gogh museum, just seeing all the original art. Yeah, just Amsterdam was really cool in that sense. Just public transportation, it was very, very well, like widely available, very well like constructed in the city. But taking a bike from anywhere and just riding around, that was a cool part.
That's awesome. All right. Then the last question. Last time we got to hang out, I'm always like 5, 10 years late to music. I got Biggie up there. That's how old my playlist is.
Yeah,
But
is that big pun
yeah,
or big pun?
I got Biggie, Big Pun. Oh man,
Oh, okay, okay.
and then Freddie Gibbs and Madlib, and then
Oh,
I
and
got
Biggie over there. Okay, I got you.
Miley Cyrus over here.
Yeah.
So but
Nice.
yeah,
These
so
are timeless, man. Timeless.
yeah. But like you actually were playing Givian, and that's the first time I heard of him, and he's got some good ones out there. So who are you listening to now? Do you have any? Have you been to? I know you saw, was it The Weekend? That must have been a
Mhm.
sick concert.
No, it was nice, but the I would say one artist, well, actually, that I don't hear a lot of his music. He doesn't put a lot of music out. But if you get a chance to listen to Odie, Odie, that's a good artist. That's a good artist, but he has very few songs that I've heard. But
What's
when I
his
found out about him,
genre?
I think it's the same because it's like I don't know, maybe just what's genre would I call that? It's like melodic. It's like a melodic soul
Okay,
alternative rap. Yeah, it's just like a melodic. It's yeah. So
like maybe
trying to know
Frank
what
Ocean
genre because
vibes.
yeah, kind of like that. And then he does switch it up a little bit. So but it's very, very talented. But like I said, not a lot of songs to pick from. Uh, but since then, since I was on Gideon, like that was like what 4 years ago, I think. Yeah, but I got really big on Afro beats too. So
Okay.
so Afro beats the the rhythm, that's something you might check out. It's a little different vibe from Givian. But I haven't been listening to a lot of that lately. Uh, what else can I recommend? Um, what are you listening to now though? If let me see where you're at.
Man, I've been doing a lot of lo-fi because I've been trying to focus,
Okay.
but kind of I've been like rap hip hop's always my go-to. So I've
Mm-hmm.
been like just the classics, like have Big Pun up there,
Yeah.
Biggie, Big L. You know
Mhm.
Cameron, listening
Yep.
to Cameron, a lot of the just old school hip hop.
Yeah, old school. Okay, well, you can't go wrong with that. I still once in a while I would have once in a while where I just put Biggie, just listen to all of Biggie. Uh, just go to the gym or driving in a car and listen to all Biggie songs. So you can't go wrong with that. But yeah, I don't know if I had to recommend some right now, one artist is Odie. See if you like the sound. Like I said, not a lot of tracks to pick from, and then Afro beats. There's a variety of it. That it's kind of like I would say it's kind of cooled down right now, like kind of like the Afrobeat scene. But I would say a couple years ago, like you would hear everyone playing Afrobeats like on the radio and things like that. So check it out. See if you like the rhythm, and maybe next time, if if I did good with these recommendations, you let me know.
Yeah, for sure. Oh,
Yeah,
Carl, thank you for coming on. This has been awesome.
Adrian, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've seen you. It's great. It was great to see you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
I'm so lost in the moment, full of constant emotion. Turn my flaws into poems for you. Chirping every day, learning every way, each and every day. Locked in my estate, trying to find a way. Think it's time to pray for real. Yeah. Chirping every day, learning every way. Nothing seems to change, running out of faith. Think I need a break. Tell me if you'll wait for me. Yeah. Crescendo, the dreamer, say I'm about to re-up, yeah. Now it seems like they just wanna be us, yeah. Why these stupid niggas dapping me up, yeah. I was lost and now I found a reason. Solo, that dolo, only follow Jesus, yeah. Was a bum and now I am the leader, yeah. One and done, don't need a salary, yeah. I become just who I wanna be, Someone told me that you grow in every step in life. Why it seem like every moment passing record time? If I don't think I'm the chosen, I'll be left behind. If you don't think you're the chosen, you'll be left behind. Found my worst enemy in the lonely mind. I've been working on this dream for a couple nights. Swear it's getting hard to see past the finish line. Man, I doubt that we gon' see him at the finish line. If you wait, you will know what I have in mind. I was saved by the ghost of my future wife. She don't play, but she know how to get me right. Boy, you better saddle up and get yourself a grind. Can I trade all my lows for a little high? I don't care about the hoes, I just wanna shine. Everywhere that I go, pray I see the light. Oh, I hope he gets the message before he meet his plight. Chirping every day, learning every way, each and every day. Locked in my estate, trying to find a way. Think it's time to pray for real. Yeah. Chirping every day, learning every way. Nothing seems to change, running out of faith. Think I need a break. Tell me if you'll wait for me. Yeah. Crescendo, the dreamer, say I'm about to re-up, yeah. Now it seems like they just wanna be us, yeah. Why these stupid niggas dapping me up, yeah. I was lost and now I found a reason. Solo, that dolo, only follow Jesus, yeah. Was a bum and now I am the leader, yeah. One and done, don't need a salary, yeah. I become just who I wanna be,